Welcome to Products That Count, everybody. I'm so excited that you guys are here. I know it's nice out, it's July, so thank you for coming. We're very excited to have you, and I'm very excited about our speaker tonight. Before we get started, I just wanted to say a big thank you to DigitalOcean for this amazing space, the food, our videographer, and our lovely partner, Mo, who's over there. So give her a hand. Woo! All right, how many here have heard about Products That Count before this event? Not too bad. Really quickly, Products That Count is a community of about 17,000 strong and growing of product managers, entrepreneurs, et cetera. It started in the Bay Area, and then we expanded to Seattle, San Jose, and now New York. We've been doing this for a year now, so very excited to be here still. We have programming such as this monthly speaker series. We also do newsletters, podcasts, and then executive retreats. All right. So I want to introduce our speaker tonight. Very excited to have her. You guys asked for an enterprise expert, so we're doing enterprise for the first time. So very excited about that. So we have Isa Watson, who is the founding CEO of Invested. Prior to that, she was the VP of Digital Products at JP Morgan Chase in New York and Hong Kong. She has an MBA from MIT, an MS from, oh my goodness, Cornell, exactly. And we are just so very, very excited to have her here tonight. So give her a warm welcome. Welcome, Isa.
Thank you, Andrea. It's really good to be here. First, I would love to get a sense of who's in the audience. So if you're a PM, can you raise your hand? You're not here. No, I'm just kidding. Are you an aspiring PM? Thinking about getting into product. Who else did not raise their hand? Or what do you do?
I'm in sales, but I work with a lot of product people, so I was trying to figure out like what you guys actually do a little bit. That's why I'm here.
What do you do?
I'm a career coach and I work with product, marketing, meeting people, just always like to know.
Okay, so a lot of product adjacent people. Anyone not product adjacent? All right. Anyways, so I am here to talk today. Let's see, do I have to?
I need to turn it on. Sorry, my bad.
I'm here to talk today about building addictive products. And addictive is not a bad word in this case, but it's really about building products in a way that make people want to come back on their own. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about Nir Eyal and his talks about habit-forming products. Right, so it's a habit that when you wake up in the morning, you probably get on IG and you just scroll through and see what's going on, what's happening overnight. Same thing with Facebook, right? So when you think about enterprise software has largely neglected the people component, the human element, and the emotional component of people and how people interact. And so generally, you have very clunky forms of software that are very feature-oriented. So it's pretty much a feature list of 1 to 100, and it's really hard to navigate. And so one thing that we've done is we've taken a more people and human and design-centric approach to building products which have become addictive. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about me. I didn't build this slide, by the way. That would be really embarrassing for me. But it's here, so I'll go ahead and address it. So from a background perspective, I started my career as a chemist. So I was a diabetes chemist at Pfizer and the first data scientist for the drug Lyrica. So you guys have probably heard Lyrica through their commercials. Pfizer does a really good job of marketing. And I actually went to business school to transition into what I thought would be a business development firm, but kind of fell into Wall Street a little bit. There's a lot of tug of war from business schools, and so had a really interesting opportunity there. Had a lot of strategic and business development roles, but ended up eventually becoming vice president of digital strategy for all of small business. So Small Business at Chase is the division that makes the 5 million American small businesses, deposit lending, cash management. And what I led was one of the biggest digital transformations of the products that they use to engage in their banking services. And the reason, I'll actually address like why I invested later, but after JP Morgan Chase, I left Start Invested. I'll tell you that founding story like a slide later. But one of the new trends in tech that I wanted to really address pretty quickly was this whole notion of consumerized enterprise software. So how many of you guys use Trello? Hands up. Slack? Oh, that's everybody. Okay, Airtable, Dropbox. These are some of the first players to hit the scene on consumerized enterprise. And what that means is a few things. That means that instead of having one enterprise buyer that introduces the product into the organization, the product is introduced more at the team level. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same team or an adjacent team. It could be completely disparate teams. And so the one reason that has happened is because in enterprise software, there's a tension between the buyers and their needs and wants and the end users and their needs and wants. And generally, as an enterprise software company, you're building to the buyer because you need to get paid so you can collect your coin. And essentially, that opened up a really interesting opportunity for people to engage with the end users directly and build products that were very powerful and impactful to them. And so the few things I wanted to point out about the consumerized enterprise software side of things is that the tension with the buyers, between the buyers and sellers, has opened up a really big opportunity. Again, I mentioned the clunkiness and the poor experience with enterprise software that has kind of not evolved over the course of years. But if you think about the level of, or how quickly consumer products have evolved in just the last 7 years, you think about Pinterest, you think about IG, you think about Facebook, you think about Twitter. That has impacted our expectations a lot as consumers. And we don't necessarily say, okay, this is my consumer side and this is my work side. Our expectations have changed and evolved because these are really powerful user experiences that are built on the consumer side of things. And so, again, there's a big opportunity there. And then the other thing is that from a business perspective, you're better positioned for growth when you have a consumerized enterprise product that can sell directly into teams. So enterprise software, your ability to grow is directly proportional to the size of your sales team. Am I wrong or am I wrong? I'm right? And, and with consumerized enterprise software, that's where you saw Slack's growth, like this. That's why you saw Dropbox, be one of the first consumerized enterprise software, tools to hit $1 billion in revenue annually. And so those are huge opportunities, but that's essentially how the industry evolves. So what is Invested? Invested is a workplace engagement tool that has a central thesis of connectedness, and connectedness being one of the central drivers of productivity and of happiness and fulfillment in the workplace. And so the founding story of Invested is that at JP Morgan Chase, when I was in small business, the one thing about my job is that I was very closely attached to the very senior management team. And when you're so far up there with all the guys, it's really easy to not, be with the people. And being with the people is what really should inform your decisions. And I don't think you can build products in a vacuum. And so what I did is I made it my business to actually kind of disguise myself as, just one of the people. And I made friends with branch managers all across the country. And when I would travel, I would actually work out of the branches. And the one thing that I saw, in that experience, because I just really wanted to be closer to the people that were impacted by my product, was that the branches that had the strongest workplace engagement, meaning these employees were self-organizing to go volunteer together, to go run a few miles together, to go smoke cigars together. Those were our strongest performing branches in the country. So before that, the workforce just had me thinking I was a creepy millennial that just wanted to be happy at work in order to perform. But it was the first time where I'm like, wow, I have conviction, I have data, I have numbers to show that there is literally and legitimately a strong ROI to, you know, having a productive and engaged workforce. And so I took a window of opportunity. I left and I started Invested. And Invested today is an enterprise tool that is something like, if I had to simplify it, I say the way I explain it to my grandmother, who's incredibly hip, I say it's like a LinkedIn and a meetup for companies. So it's a place, it's a central repository for all events and activities going on, both grassroots and at the company level. So things from happy hours to there's a cool speaker coming in to, you know, the running group is meeting at 7 o'clock by the Hudson. It's a central repository for all volunteer opportunities as well that you can actually engage with locally at the individual level or at the team level. And the third component is employee groups. So are any of you guys part of like ERGs or affinity groups at your company? Yeah. What affinity group are you part of? What affinity group are you part of?
I was involved in the second one.
Yeah, so affinity groups are kind of traditionally the way that people that are the same kind of interact, right? So it's like women's group, LGBT group, etc. But the reality is that people build natural relationships on interests, right? So you and I, we may both love music, right? Or Rebecca, you and I, we may both love ballet. We wouldn't necessarily know that by being in an affinity group because we're women. Or we wouldn't know that we're being in an affinity group because we're, I don't know, Latino, whatever the case is. And so there's an affinity group, it's just an employee interest group component on the platform as well, that allows people to discover other people that have the same interests. And so the platform built on machine learning components actually recommends events and activities to you based on what's specific and what's of interest to you. And so that's essentially what Invested does. Our customers are mostly kind of your progressive mid-markets like Walmart.com, Jet, Vivo, companies like that. Greenhouse Software, I'm sure you guys know. And oh yeah, we were Inc. 30 under 30 before I hit 30. And we're back to, most of our investors are like your traditional West Coast investors. So Harrison Metal, which was the first institutional capital, and Harry's and Heroku and Precursor Ventures, which is a pre-seed firm out in San Francisco. So I wanted to talk about my product development process, and I'll go into 3 examples of how this is materialized for me. So the first thing that I think is important to do is listen. And I think that a lot of times we aren't intentional with the way that we listen. My mom always told me, she's like, Isa, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, you need to use them in proportion. But I never did, and I never really understood what she was saying. I was like, why is she saying this to me? But from a product perspective, it's super important because you get a lot of information just by passively listening to people. And it's not just about listening to what they're saying, it's also about listening to what they're not saying. And so the first thing I think is super important to do is to consciously listen to topics and opinions and perspectives in a certain area. And I think that naturally we don't do enough of that, and we compartmentalize opinions based on like how similar they are to ours. The second thing is focus. So from a focus perspective, it's really important to, once you kind of listen, you have all these perspectives, right? But you can't necessarily engage with and interact with all those perspectives. So you kind of have to hone in on a few things that you think are the most viable options and opportunities. And usually focusing kind of entails acquiring feedback, building low fidelity solutions that you can actually go test lightly and lightly iterating on that. The third thing is checking yourself and analyzing. So once you go from the 30,000 foot view of like, all right, let me capture all the perspectives, to the 10,000 foot view of, all right, let me go focus and build a little bit, or the initial building, then you actually have to come back up to like 20,000 feet. And you have to ask yourself, okay, 2 things. 1, am I still on the same path that I was when I was listening, right? Am I still kind of solving for the same things that I thought I was solving for? And B, is this feel relevant. Because checking yourself and analyzing is not just kind of coming back up for air, but it's also kind of digging deeper into the business problem. And once you kind of build, there are a lot of things that look really cool to build, and then you build it, you're like, it's not what I thought it was. And so it's really important to kind of take a step back and make sure that you're still on the same track that you thought you were. The fourth thing is to iterate. Now that you've kind of checked yourself, and you've analyzed, and you have your initial concept, build a few experiments. So that can look like a few things. So one, if you are building kind of a new page to an application, new functionality, maybe my question is, what gets people to use it, right? And so maybe an experiment is, testing around a few entry points of how people get to that part of your software. And then the last thing is to measure, because if you don't measure it, it didn't happen. So 3 examples that we're going to dig in for and invest in was 1, doubling down on our Slack integration. 2, moving users from being transactional to more relationship building. And 3, revamping user onboarding. So, I didn't know that was there. I wanted to stop. That is distracting. I'm not even looking at it. Okay. So, from a listening perspective, the one thing that we kept hearing from people was not directly, and again, when you're listening to people, I think that users will very quickly tell you, I want this, I want that. I mean, if you're married, you have a spouse, right? You ask them what they want. I want the kitchen clean, I want the lawn mowed, I want the cat walked. No, cat's not gonna walk. So, something like that. The list will go on and on and on, right? And so the one thing that we did was just kind of understand how users wanted to engage. And the one thing that was important to them was meeting them where they were. And where were they? They were always in a chat system. So we took a look at different chat systems, the hip chats of the world, the Slacks of the world, Salesforce integrations. And what we found was for our target customer, Slack was where everyone was living, right? So you see, everyone's not Angela, that's for real. And so that was our initial kind of conviction of, all right, we think that the Slack integration is the right way to go. So on the focusing side, we said, all right, there's so many ways to integrate with Slack. They have a very sophisticated API. What does this look like? And so we kind of asked users a lot of questions to kind of get the right use case. And so the 2 things that we initially built were a series of slash commands where you can actually pull events directly into Slack. So / events, returns events, and you can just shuffle, sign up, / volunteer. And a series of webhooks that are just, notifications. So a reminder, this event you signed up for is happening in 2 days, or this event you indicated interest in is happening tomorrow, are you gonna sign up? And so we said, okay, we think that that's the broadest use case. And, it made sense. People seemed really excited about it, so we built it. The thing about it is that when we analyzed it, the one thing that we found was that there was a little bit of an education barrier to everyone when I say, I need all you guys to remember that / events is a thing, right? And so we found ourselves having to do kind of almost these like big marketing campaigns in these organizations to like even have them know that / events was a thing. And so we kind of not necessarily went back to the drawing board. It was still helpful for the people that knew it, but it wasn't going to be as impactful as it could have been. And so on the iterate side, the one thing that we found was that there are 3 segments of users that engage with our products. So on the most kind of intense side, you have the creators. So those are people that are creating events, creating content. You have on another side the people that are signing up for things, maybe like once or twice or casually. And then you have some passive users / non-users. And so on the creator side, that pain point of being able to share out things share out events directly to the group that they wanted via Slack was a much bigger pain point that we could solve. And so what we did is we implemented a group channel integration. So a group on Invested, let's call it the dog lovers group, because that's a group at every single company. The dog lovers group Invested is mapped to the dog lovers channel on Slack. So if someone creates an event on the dog lovers group and Invested, it actually just automatically goes over to the channel in the form of action buttons, sign up, or shuffle, or pass, right? And so the thing about kind of building an addictive product is that a lot of people are really overwhelmed. Slack is a great, tool, but a lot of people end up being overwhelmed with the channel fatigue. So there are a lot of channels going on. It's just sometimes a little bit too much, and I can't really sort through all the noise. But allowing people to sign up directly like that mitigates a lot of the channel fatigue and makes them feel like, you know what, I'm in the know. And I feel like I'm part of this group and I'm part of this community. And so that was a place where, kind of doubling down on that integration and kind of learning how to change things up for the better was really important. All right, this will not do this anything. So on the transaction to relationship building, the one thing, just to kind of contextualize this for a second, if you look at platforms like Eventbrite, or platforms like Meetup, you go on there for what? You go on there to sign up for something, it sends you an invite, and you're out, right? You go on there to find friends. Does anyone find friends on Eventbrite? Is that like a thing? No? Okay, cool. I didn't think so. So we call those kind of more your transactional products. But you have your relationship building products up here. Those are products like your Facebook, sometimes your IG, I guess. Like, I've heard it's like a new thing that the kids are doing, like building relationships on IG. That's what this said. And so, you have your kind of series of relationship building products up here. But the one thing that you don't have, and if you look at kind of the x-axis, personal to professional, you don't have anything in the quadrant of like relationship building and professional. The closest thing you have is LinkedIn. But the thing about LinkedIn is that you make a connection, and then there's not much that happens after that besides maybe a few chats. And so we saw that as a huge opportunity in the workforce, and especially given the tools that people had and the fact that they still weren't feeling connected. So that was kind of the listening part. On the focusing part, the one thing that we did is we really focused on building the employee interest groups. So we took a page out of Meetup's book for this. So the founder of Meetup, Scott Ackerman, he's one of our mentors, and people were saying, we want groups, we want groups, we want groups. We're like, all right, that's super cool. We'll put groups on the platform. And so when we deployed one particular customer and we gave them the ability to create groups, they created like 2 groups. And I was like, you said you wanted groups. Like, what's good? Like, we built this for you. And so what happened was that the barrier to creating was like too high, right? And so what we did is what Meetup did back in the day. So Meetup had this whole list of topics, right? And this whole list of locations. And they said, okay, Paris. Okay, Chihuahua. We should have a Chihuahua meetup in Paris. And they just put it on the internet and people showed up. And we were like, all right, that's cool. So then on our next customer, what we did is we pre-populated a bunch of groups, like groups that people, like the book club, working moms, the dog lovers, the wine connoisseurs. And everybody was in the groups. We were like, oh, so the groups are really popping now, right? And so being able to focus on building the right solution and kind of translating what we're hearing was really important. And that kind of like flows into the analyzing as well. So the iterating was bringing kind of a social and emotional component, because the reality is that, my dad was a computer engineer for a long time, like 20 years or something like that. And I remember my parents telling them when I was growing up, I was like, you guys are like really boring. Like, you just go home and go to work. Like, do you have friends at work? Like, that's not a thing. I've never met your coworkers. But the reality is that this whole separation of like, my work stuff is over here and my like personal life is over here is not necessarily a thing anymore. And so people are really wanting and yearning for that social connectivity at work. And so tapping into that and enabling social connections better and social interaction. So they're like minor things that happen. So let's say Melissa wants to create, she wants to host a happy hour for XYZ. She doesn't have the social capital naturally to do it, or she doesn't know if people are going to want to, come. What's the worst thing? Creating a happy hour and no one shows up, and then you're like, well, listen, no one goes to her stuff, right? And so even building in the product things like polling, the ability to see if people are interested in things before, to kind of give you a little bit of a fan base, get you a little bit of love. Those are some of the emotional things that kind of fed into the iteration component of, building out this aspect, and then obviously measuring that. So the last example I wanted to give was on the onboarding side of things. So in onboarding, our goal was to decrease the time to value for users. Users are so impatient, and that's one thing that I feel like I've learned the hard way. Like, if they don't get it within like 2 seconds, and I'm like this as a user, so I shouldn't expect people to use my stuff more patiently. If they don't get it in 2 seconds, it's a wrap. You've lost them, and you've lost them probably for a long time. You may not get a chance again for a while. And so the one thing that we did in listening is that we held a series of user research interviews, and we watched people use the product. And the one thing that we heard, again, kind of in the listening, was, oh, this is good, But it was never like the, aha, that from the gut, oh my God, this is great. Like how I react to Slack. And so we were like, okay, we are trying to kind of bring in that aha moment. And we felt like we had a big opportunity to do that within the first 2 minutes users were in the platform. And so what we did is we said, when we first started trying to kind of experiment with onboarding, we were trying to cover too much ground. We're like, hey, did you know you can do events? And did you know you can also volunteer? Did you know you can also create groups? And did you know you can go find your friends? It's just too much, right? And so we said, all right, scratch all that. We're going to focus users on a few things. And so the one thing that we did is we said, all right, what are your interests? Great, these are events for you. And you'll discover volunteering later. Volunteering is a type of event. You'll discover groups later. Groups are part of the component. And so, part of the platform. But, we had a huge opportunity in onboarding to make sure users were focused and to drive them to take stronger actions on the platform. And on the analyzing side of things, one of the things that we test for and are kind of building, test for and kind of trying to understand is our onboarding confusing? Because when you, there's a balance between being very broad and being very specific. So if I say we're only events and I only give you the option of a happy hour, do you think this is like a rogue drinking club? Maybe. But if I only give you the option of a volunteer event, does it mean that we're like a CSR platform? And so there's this balance that we try to strike in trying to get the right feedback and understanding are we still on brand? And is this clear to the users? And so on the kind of iterating side, there's a lot of iteration with timing asks at the right time, and requesting an investment from users. If users have to fill this out, fill that out, and then I don't get a reward, and Nir talks about this very eloquently in his book, I'm kind of annoyed. And I don't want to go fill out the next thing that you've asked me to do, because I've made all this investment of energy on the platform and I haven't gotten any delight. And so that's something that we experiment with too in our measuring. And so from a takeaway perspective, the pointers that I wanted to leave is that, is anyone here at a company over 5,000 people? Noah. So small world, Noah and I spent New Year's Eve together at the party, at a really cool party in Soho, so that was awesome. So it's good to see you again. So the one misconception I think people have is that all of this only applies to early stage companies, right? And I think that it's not that it only applies to early stage companies, but it's that the struggles and the hardships are different depending on the stage. So I think in early stage companies, if you go back to the product process, the harder things are, checking yourself and analyzing. because you're drinking from a fire hose, you're very resource constrained, and the thing that you really want to do is get stuff out super quickly, and you don't have a lot of checks and balances in place. And so I think that's a struggle with early stage companies. I think mid-market companies, they struggle initially with focus because they're kind of in this limbo of like, we're a startup, we're early stage. Like my friends that left, they're like, we're a startup. And I'm like, no, you're not. That kind of balance between like having the Googlers there and having like employee number 5 there, there's a whole array of things that people want to do and a lot of different visions that you're managing. And so focus ends up being a really hard and difficult thing. And then at later mid-market gets toward experimentation. And then for later stage, experimentation becomes the hard thing. So are you really, really experimenting the right way with things, or are you kind of trying and testing different things? You don't end up testing as much in some of the later stage companies. But the last thing I wanted to mention is uncovering your secret sauce. So I love, like, I spend a lot of time with my product mentors and kind of what secret sauce is, how do you find it? And I'm a chemist too. If I need this molecule over here, I know how to get to it, for the most part. And uncovering your secret sauce is essentially kind of being diligent about going through this process, especially on the experimentation side, and listening. One example that I love to give is from one of my mentors, John Strauss, who's a co-founder of Greenhouse Software, and he was one of the senior leaders at Baby Center. And the one thing that he said was, one secret sauce is that 25% of pregnancies actually end in miscarriage. And that's something people don't really talk about a whole lot. And so a lot of times there are these unsubscriptions, a lot of unsubscriptions. And they found out that it was because these women were miscarrying, right? And they didn't want emails being like, your baby looks like this week. It was just really painful. And so what they did is they would have a pop-up if you went to unsubscribe and say, usually people unsubscribe because they miscarried. Is this the case for you? If so, we have a support group over here. And those women ended up joining the support group, and then it was so emotionally satisfying for them that they ended up announcing their pregnancies generally to the support group before they did their spouses and their families. And so when you think about, your secret sauce is that experimentation, but it's like the jewels in listening to people. And there's no, I try to hack things, I do sometimes, and there's no hacking to get to the secret sauce, but it's like once you uncover it and once you kind of, combine these things, it's really powerful. So the one thing I'll leave you guys with on going back to the enterprise side of things is that, we've taken a much different approach to the way that we build enterprise software. Our software is social, it's people-centric, it's design-centric. We actually talk to people in the software like they're humans. That's another thing, just like even the language and the messaging that you use. And I think it's a huge opportunity in a lot of enterprise tools. And I wouldn't say that, we obviously haven't IPO'd for like $20 billion yet, but what I will say is that from an engagement perspective, we've seen a lot of really interesting indicators that this is really working. Case in point, everything in our industry category struggles to achieve a 8% monthly adoption, right? Monthly active user rate. And for some of our average clients, we have a 50% monthly active users. And so that's funny, when I was on the fundraising road or whatever you call it, I showed that stat and I was like, oh my God, for real. And I thought it was just normal, kind of doing what we do, but it's actually something that is a huge indicator that, this is a huge untapped opportunity. And so with that, I have heard my voice for way longer than I'm comfortable. And so I will take a pause there, Andrea, and I guess we'll do some Q&A.
Yeah, we'll open it up for questions.
Yes.
From what I understand, you have a product that mimics internally what something like a meetup or an Eventbrite plus a social network would do. those in the outside world get their benefit from this ongoing momentum of more users, more events, more engagement, more opportunities to invest time and get a return for it. How do you overcome that when you're basically starting a brand new, I'll call it a two-side marketplace, but you're basically spinning up that network from scratch every time you enter a new company? How do you tackle that, and do you think that there's like a minimum size of company that you can be effective at?
Yeah, so I have three responses. So one is tackling, I talked about like the 3 segments of our users, right? So on the creator side, the one thing that we do when we deploy into an enterprise company is that we try to find a group of early adopters, right? We actually do find a group of early adopters who use the software first. And we focus on kind of building that creator, because building that creator pool amplifies the content growth way more than building any other segment of user on the platform. So that's one thing. The second thing is that down the road, we are exploring integrations with things like Eventbrite, with things like Meetup, to actually kind of bring in content from the outside world as well. Those are actually active conversations that we're having. We were just on the phone with Eventbrite yesterday, actually. And then the third thing around company size, we have found that companies start to feel this pain point of, man, I don't know people, I don't know who they are, I can't find them, at about 150 to 200 people. And actually, it's something called, you did an article yesterday, Dunbar. Have you guys heard that?
Yep.
See, so I think it was 150. You can only kind of have relationships with 150 people, right? And so, our smallest customer has about 275 employees, all the way up to maybe 5,000 employees. So we do kind of focus on that middle market, but we've tried with, just a true enterprise product with like 30 people, and it wasn't as much of a pain point that they were feeling. Other questions?
Awesome, thanks, Lisa. I guess my question is, especially in enterprise products, I think it's so important to develop sort of like that North Star metric of like, okay, like what is it that we are optimizing for, and how do we know that this is working? I think especially something that you said earlier in your talk really resonated, which is this notion of like, especially in the onboarding, it's like, how do we get someone to take that first action? And like maybe like that first action being like sign up for an event, because we know if they do that, then we got them for the long run. So would love to kind of hear your thoughts around how does anyone go about sort of strategically, or like a framework for like figuring out what that North Star is, and kind of like what you've identified as being your North Star.
So I think that your North Star evolves a little bit as the company grows. And the one thing, I'll give another example. Facebook's North Star was that you get in a product, you make 7 friends within a certain period of time, and they knew they had you hooked. How do we find our North Star? The one thing that we have been distinguishing a bit more is users that go into the application because of some external trigger, which is actually a high number of users, versus the users that actually take action to sign up for things, right? And so, as it pertains to how we kind of uncover what that is, there are 2 things that we're actually evaluating right now. One is we have a pretty strong hypothesis that the North Star is some number of events that you sign up for within either first getting on the platform, like your first 60 days or your first 30 days. And right now we're testing kind of what that is. So we have this on Tableau, we have the list of people by heat maps, who have done this action a whole lot, done the action a whole lot. And for the people that have signed up for events, we're kind of honing in on that and trying to understand a little bit more about their journey. And so right now I can't tell you the number of events, but we feel fairly confident that it is event sign up. But what number of events and what time period, we're still uncovering. But I think it's about kind of finding the trends that you think correlate with the strongest actions that you want to take, and then kind of backtracking from there to figure out how they got there. And so that's how we think about it. Other questions? Yeah.
Coming from the B2C space, so this is in terms of like feedback loops from your customers outside of user interviews. Hi. What type of process does Invested use to identify and incorporate new ideas into the development process or product development process? It was a what?
Sarah.
Oh, okay, hi.
So a few things. So one is that outside of user research interviews, like talking to users, there's tools like Full Story, where you can actually see where people are clicking and see what they're doing during their active sessions. But as it pertains to incorporating things into the product feedback loop, it's a combination, and it's so funny because we've spent so much time on this, and I think it's a combination of art and science. At one point, we were like, all right, we're going to score these things, and we're going to use the rice method. Didn't work. And then we were like, all right, let's just see how we feel. Didn't work. So it's like a little bit like somewhere in between. So it was a matter of, there's a lot of customer feedback that we'll hear in the context of, we want this feature, we want that feature, we want this feature. But what we try to do is we try to understand the biggest pain points collectively that are across our customers and kind of rank those. So Jet feels similar pain points to Vivo, but they may not express it the same way. They feel similar pain points to, say, Carbon 3D or Greenhouse. They might not express it the same way. And so we're very conscious of how to listen to customers across different types of customers and making sure we kind of homogenize the language of the feedback that they're giving to us. And so then we take that and we kind of prioritize based on the biggest impact that we think we'll have, and also our goals. So we have goals for different customers in each month. So we say, we want this customer to, 0.5x, the number of active users. We want this customer to 2x the number of signups. And we say, okay, does this, particular pain point, do we think it'll drive signups and help us achieve our goal in the next 4 to 6 weeks? Do we think it'll help us achieve this goal? And so it's almost it's like balance. It's like a little equilibrium type of thing where it's a combination of the customer feedback from a pain point perspective and what are our company goals that we're trying to accrue. So it's a little bit of an art and a science in that way. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Hey. Great speech, thank you. You talked a lot about consumerized enterprise products, right? I'm actually in the deep B2B2C space, so we're selling to all these, head of HR, head of communications, they give us all the millions. And you talked about, well, I hope. You talked about the tensions there, right? Between your end user and, the person that gives you the money. You have any tips on how to balance that?
Yeah, I think it's the multifaceted approach. By the way, we also saw the head internal comps who give us a lot of millions. So I think it's a multifaceted approach. I think on the buyer side, it's a little bit more relationship heavy, and on the user side, you can win the company over metrics. So on the buyer side, I think that a lot of times as very analytical people, as very STEM-oriented people, we can't forget that these are also people. They're Homo sapiens, they have performance reviews, they're worried about how they look to their bosses, how they look to their friends and their coworkers. And so I generally advise account managers to focus on making sure that that relationship is strong. What are their needs? What are they most afraid of? How do we mitigate that? How do we kind of put their worries to rest? And then I err on the side of, I know this is recorded and I hope that it doesn't bite me in the leg, but I err on the side of pleasing the user, because at the end of the day, if you are getting really great feedback from the users, and the users are super engaged, that's what matters. And I can tell you, with enterprise software in particular, the one thing that companies are afraid of in every procurement process I've been in is, well, how do we know users will use it? Because we deployed this and they didn't use it, and we deployed that and they didn't use it. And the one thing that one of our advisors on our advisory board, she's the chief people officer of Credit Department, and one thing that she always tells me, her name is Colleen, she always tells me, she's like, listen, if people are using it, I'm not going to take it away because I'm not going to be the bad guy. And so again, relationship on the buyer side, engagement on the user side, and making sure that you have a good balance of both of those.
Hello, I'm Sheena and I'm an aspiring product manager at eBay right now. So I'm currently working on a page and so basically revamping an eBay page. So my question to you, because you talked about so much about users, so my question to you is, when is the right time to actually talk to the users? Do you go upfront or do you build something and then go to them to like get a feedback from them?
So there are different ways to talk to users. There's the direct ways, and then there's the indirect ways. So if sometimes we do get sensitive, like we don't want to like host a big focus group and seem like we're being annoying. And sometimes what we've done is we've sent members of our team over to like some of the company events where they can actually just get casual feedback from people. And so I just wanted to point that out as like not every conversation or value or insight you extract from a user has to be a formal attempt to talk to them. That's where how that passive listening comes in. But I think that it depends. So how strong is your conviction that you're achieving the goals that you're trying to achieve with the page? Do you feel like super strong conviction because this is something that eBay's been wanting to do for a very long time and they have a lot of data to support it? Do you feel, I don't know, but I think, where do you fall?
So it depends on basically I'm right now looking at the design and there's no clear indication that they wanted to do something for long. So like right now I'm in that stage to finally see if that some design will work or no. So, I mean.
I think then if you're kind of at the design and your question is like, I don't know if it'll work or not, I would err on the side of like initiating contact with users because the last thing you want to do is go down the path of one design and then it's all high fidelity and engineers have, push code to make this work. And then they're like, what the heck is this, right? And so from a design perspective though, I would say, maybe like 3 low fidelity options to get like just reactions to. The one thing I love about people is that they're very just visual, their brain is so used to processing millions of data points a day. So like you put something in front of somebody, you get a super quick reaction. And I think that for something like design purposes, it doesn't have to be like a super in-depth conversation. I think that there's certain ways that you can get like super quick reactions to just check your gut on which way is the right way to go. And so we made a lot of mistakes. And I've made a lot of mistakes and I'll continue to make mistakes, but some of the earlier mistakes I made were kind of saying, oh, they said this, they said that. I'm gonna put it in paper and then I'm gonna turn this high fidelity solution into code. That was a mistake. So because of my lessons, I'm a little bit biased to tell you to see, I decided I'm talking to users now for that.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you, Isa? I'm Chen, and I have a question. Yes, thanks. About the competition, as I know, actually for now there are many startups providing this kind of service, especially connected to traditional social networks as with like traditional ERP platforms. And there are many platforms. They also provide some integrated service, including like ERP, employee engagement, as well as CRM, etc. So I mean, for me, my organization is also trying to find, for instance, like the good solutions, those good platforms for our employees to increase their productivity. But actually, for us, it's kind of like a paradox because there are so many similar products existing on the market. So my question is about the competitive advantage. So I would like to know how would you define your competitive advantage about your platform within a constant competitive environment? Thank you.
And kind of brought it to me. All right. So I would say a few things. This is a good question. It's a fair question. The one thing I would say on the competitive landscape is that startups one thing that I find is a common mistake is trying to be too much to too many people, and instead of being the right thing to the right person at the right time. And so the one thing that we've done is we don't say that we are the perfect solution for IBM or for your mom and pop pizza shop. We say we're the perfect solution for your progressive middle market company. So that's one thing. The second thing I'll say on the competitive landscape is that I actually gave a talk on Bloomberg Live about this a few weeks ago on differentiation. And the question was, how do you stay differentiated? And the one thing that I talked about was experimentation and rapid experimentation. We run experiments at the start of every week on customer engagement, on user acquisition, and on product. And on Fridays, we look at that data and we say, how much did we learn? What are we iterating? So we're iterating very rapidly because of that. So that's one thing that accelerates this, that allows us to stand out the pack a little bit. But from a product side, on what differentiates Invested from other platforms, I would say it's a few things. I would say that one is that while there are platforms that have taken an approach to increasing productivity and employee engagement, there's no platform that has really made it personalized to the employee as a person. They make it personalized to the employee as an employee of that organization. And that's a huge missed opportunity, and that was kind of where we kind of said, let's get in that window, because what that does is that drives engagement for us because people relate more to our product. And another thing I would say is that the way that products have combined their feature sets are very different. So there's some products that are just like, oh, we're just like events, and there's some products where they're just like, oh, we're just volunteering. The one thing that companies are really wanting to do is consolidate the number of tools that they have. I hear this all the time from all the PR people. We have so many tools, they don't use them. They integrate with this, they integrate with that. And so what we did is we were very strategic in what feature sets to put in the tool to cover the most ground, but to be specific enough in a way that made sense and created a lot of efficiency to organizations. And so if you find a solution that does event sponsoring, kind of employee groups together, let me know. But we were very deliberate in kind of carving that out because it seemed like filling the biggest gap on efficiency and solving the biggest need. So between that and a personalized experience, and then our engagement is engagement that a lot of companies say that they just really haven't seen. I would say those three things are the ways that we differentiate ourselves.
Do you share your roadmap with your customers?
Hi, I'm Ashley.
Hi, Ashley.
I work for a product management tool, so this is what I hear every day. But I'm just wondering, do you share your roadmap with your customers? The HR people, the target?
Maybe sometimes certain things. But we also don't want to just say, hey, here's a roadmap, and they're like, yo, what about that thing that I thought was really important to me that we pushed down several times because we had other important things? So no, not explicitly, but we do share our vision and kind of where we're going next and the next things that we're tackling. And the one thing that I talk about with our customers is this whole notion of co-building. I love to co-build. I don't have all the answers in my head. Even though they're, I'm biased, but I think my team's kind of brilliant. They don't have all the answers. I think that it's really about kind of working well with the customers and working closely to make sure we know the right things. And so, no, we don't share it explicitly, but we make sure we're kind of communicating very openly what our kind of next groups of things are.
I'm going to try to close you later.
Okay.
Last question. I know. Lots of questions for Isaac, but one more.
You mentioned at the very beginning of your talk that you were noticing the branches that you were visiting where people were more connected, were more productive. How are you quantifying the value that you provide when this is a very qualitative aspect of the workplace experience?
That's a really good question. So, and this is a question that my friend over here who sells comms and HR, we get millions. The ROI question comes up a lot, and it's like, oh, we're not a sales tool that helps you increase your sales by 30%. And so I talk about this in the context of primary metrics and secondary metrics. So the primary metrics that we focus on in companies are things employee engagement survey responses. So with some of our companies, we're able to actually like influence some of the questions and how are those questions moving. That's actually, you know, a really good indicator for us. As far as, you know, it's a gift and a curse. I don't want to make it sound like we're low quality, but like the bar for enterprise is so low from an engagement perspective, and when you overshoot that by like even 2x, which we have by like 5x, they're like, ooh, come back, we want more, you know? And so that buys us a little time to have hardcore metrics. So a lot of the vanity metrics I put in that primary category. So that's your engagement, your employee engagement surveys, your NPS, et cetera. Secondary, that's a little bit more tricky. But the one thing that we are doing is for our enterprise customers, we integrate both with SSO and SCIM. So with you know, SCIM, that allows us to know when an employee leaves a company. And what we're doing is we're building data models under user behavior to understand, you know, this is characteristic of someone that's about to leave, or this is characteristic of someone that's about to stay. We have the option of probably down the road kind of even integrating that with performance reviews. And so making the case for retention with Invested is kind of one of those secondary things that we can do down the road as our, you know, data continues to grow. And so that's a much stronger ROI. The one thing I will say is that companies spend $600 billion a year on lost productivity and turnover costs. And it's a cost that has done nothing but go up, and it's a cost that people are now paying attention to. This wasn't a conversation, this wasn't a solution that would have popped off 3 years ago, because it wasn't hurting the organizations as badly as it's hurting them now. And so we buy ourselves time kind of initially with that primary set, and then the secondary set, you know, kind of our North Star there is retention.
Please give Isa a big round of applause.
Thank you. I know we can go on and on asking Isa questions, but she will be here. We're here till 9 p.m. So before we wrap up, just a couple of quick things. Does everybody still have their blue raffle ticket? Yes. We'll have Eduardo, hopefully. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I know how to do this. Oh, I did. Okay, good. All right, so hold up those tickets, guys. We'll do this quickly. Hey. So we are raffling off, so DigitalOcean, our wonderful host for this evening, their mascot is Sammy the Shark. And so we have here some very fluffy Sammy the Shark slippers. Awesome. Not everybody gets this, so this is a big thing. So Terrence, pull out the number or the ticket. Call it out.
Oh. 379817.
All right, congratulations. Here you go, thank you. What we also really do quickly is give anybody the opportunity to have their 15 seconds of fame. So, if you have a job that you're hiring for, if you are looking for a job, if you have a product you want to share, or if you want to share anything in general that's appropriate to share in a public forum, please come up, grab your 15 seconds, and share. Don't be shy. Can't believe that nobody has anything to share tonight. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, Ashley.
Hello, hello. So I just wanted to talk about my tool. So I'm from Product Board, which is the product management tool, and we really focus on customer research and customer feedback. So we help you bring all the emails, the Slack integration, the NPS scores, Delighted, Zapier, all of that into actual tangible numbers so that you can see 20 people requested X feature and it was critical to them, and then we give you nice critical numbers. We also do roadmaps and mostly a lot of prioritization. So that's Product Board. Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else? 15 seconds of fame. Come on up.
Thank you. Hi, my name is David. I work for a company called Andela, and what we do is we connect developers from the continent of Africa with opportunities here in the US. So if anybody out there is looking for brilliant developers or knows anybody that's looking for brilliant software developers, please let us know. Thank you.
Last one. All right.
Hi everyone, my name is Miwa. By day, I lead a product team at eBay for recommendation systems, but by night, I launch and run a nonprofit program that's focused on improving diversity in the tech workforce. It's called the Tech Career Accelerator Program. So you can check us out at codeinteractive.org/TCAP. So TCAP. But we're always looking for mentors and volunteers that are interested in helping groups from low income and groups underrepresented in tech get their first jobs in the tech sector. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right, I promise just 3 more quick things. 1, since we're all PMs, we love feedback. We do. We love feedback. We will send you guys an email after this event. It has a survey. It's very short. Please take it. It helps us get better, make our programming better. We also share that feedback with our speaker. So please, please, please take the 1 minute or 2 minutes to fill that out. We also have like a mini contest with our speakers. So we do our NPS. And typically we do what, I know, but listen, you did really well. So we typically get about 50. So let's make Isa the winner and make sure you take that survey. So please do. Our event next month, August 15th, we are hosting Sarah Bernard. She is the COO of Crisis Text Line, former VP of product at jet.com, and she will be speaking about building better products by design. So please sign up. It's going to be really exciting. And then selfishly, I run product by day at One Kings Lane, product and engineering. I am speaking at Product School on how to focus on your purpose when building products, because we get all very excited. Sometimes we lose track of our purpose. So that is on August 2nd. So sign up. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Thanks again, Isa, so much for being here. It was such a wonderful evening.